If you watched the first video, you saw the RS flip-flop in action and its truth table. One thing we can do with an RS flip-flop is that we can add a clock to it. You can see that we've added two NAND gates here at the start of the RS flip-flop circuit, and to that pair of NAND gates we now have a clock signal, so that when this clock signal goes high, both of these are going to trigger a signal into our RS flip-flop. So this will only be active, it'll only change state at some point when this clock signal goes high. And it's just going to oscillate back and forth, high, low, high, low, high, low. So it will oscillate and read the input at this S and at this R as this signal operates. We call that a synchronous mode of operation. It's synchronized to the clock signal, the read function of both this S and R set and reset. If you notice, this one is actually active high. The one that I built in Tinkercad in the previous video was active low. This one flips to active high because we put this other NAND gate in the way here. That's really going to flip what our signal is. So when a high signal comes in here, it's compared with an AND to the clock signal, and it comes out low here. And then it gets flipped by the NAND gate again to be a high signal coming out, which is read by the other NAND gate. I scanned page 239 of your book to be able to show you the waveform diagram for the clocked RS flip-flop. And just wanted to explain it a little bit. Each one of these lines is going to represent the signal that's going to be represented at each of the pins on the clocked flip-flop. This one here is our clock signal. You can see it's a digital signal, and it is a constant pulse with a constant rate, and that's what we want to see from a clock signal. We want to see something that creates for us a pulse that's very constant. What this is showing us here is this is the difference between the time that it takes for the change in state of the set input. So the set input changes first, but the state at Q doesn't change until the rising edge, that's what this edge here is called, of the clock signal. So as the clock signal rises to high, that's when this Q state is going to change to its high with a high at set. And the same thing happens with reset. So when reset goes high, the state of Q doesn't change, it doesn't fall to low, and the state of Q does not rise to high until that rising edge of the clock signal. And that's an important thing to understand. The trigger is the rising edge of this active high clocked RS flip-flop. If it was active low, we would see the state change on the trailing edge, or this edge of the falling edge of the clock signal. And that's just something to pay attention to. Now here we have a D flip-flop, which is a little bit like adding two RS flip-flops together, because it gives us the ability to have a synchronous and an asynchronous mode. So here we can see we have some inputs here. We've got our preset, we've got the D input, we've got our clock signal, and we've got a clear signal. The preset and the clear, these will set the state of Q and Q naught no matter what the clock is doing, whether it's at the rising edge or the trailing edge of its signal. As long as you send this one a low, it will set Q to high, and as long as you set a low to clear, it'll set Q naught to high. So this set will work independently of the D and the clock The D's job is to work synchronous with the clock. So as the clock pulse moves, it will read the D, and then the D will either change the state of Q to high or low, depending on the state of D. You see that D state matches Q state. So a high signal at D will create a high at Q, as long as both preset and clear are also high. We have this prohibited state here, and on the old slide, if you downloaded it before I fixed it this morning, this actually read high, high here, and that was not correct because the preset and the clear are active low on this chip. Preset and clear are low, D is active high because the D state will match the Q state. And once again, D will only change, it will only read the D pin on the rising edge of the clock signal. And so that's why we have this little caret here. It means as the clock is starting to go high, it's reading that D signal and passing it to Q.